The Galactic Council chamber floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a dying star that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Inside the massive structure, representatives from 47 different species gathered in the Grand Hall. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some stood on legs, others floated in containment fields. All of them stared at the single human standing at the center of the room. Ambassador Deho stood perfectly still in his simple black suit. His gray hair was neatly combed, and his weathered face showed no emotion. Around him, alien beings whispered through translation devices, their voices creating a strange harmony of sounds that filled the ancient chamber. Above him, holographic displays showed star maps with human colonies marked in red, spreading across sectors the council claimed as their own. Speaker Verixis rose from his throne. The Telmarian was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in scales that shifted colors with his mood. Right now, they pulsed an angry crimson. His 4 eyes fixed on the human ambassador as he spoke, his voice amplified to shake the very walls. Humanity stands accused of 43 violations of galactic law, Veraxis announced. You have expanded into forbidden sectors. You have refused to surrender your military fleet. You have rejected our technology limits. Worst of all, you continue to develop artificial intelligence beyond approved levels. These crimes cannot go unpunished. Deho waited. He had been a diplomat for 30 years, and he understood that silence was sometimes the best weapon. Let them talk. Let them reveal their intentions. A council member from the Horthian Dominion, crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, added its voice. Humanity has been in space for only 3 centuries. You are children playing with tools you do not understand. The Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. We know what is best for all species. Another voice joined in, this one from a species that looked like floating jellyfish. Your artificial intelligences are dangerous. Your expansion is reckless. Your military buildup threatens the stability of the galaxy. You must submit to Council authority. Deho, let them continue. One by one, species that humanity had never wronged spoke of crimes that existed only in the Council's imagination. The real crime, he knew, was that humanity refused to stop growing, refused to stay in the box the Council had prepared for them. Finally, Verixis raised one massive claw for silence. The Council offers humanity one final chance. You have 72 hours to do the following. Surrender all military vessels to Council control. Accept Council governors on all human worlds. Halt all artificial intelligence research and retreat from all disputed sectors. If you refuse, the Council will have no choice but to systematically remove humanity from the galaxy. The chamber fell silent. Every being present waited for the humans' response. Some expected begging. Others anticipated threats. Most simply assumed humanity would have no choice but to submit. Deho took a slow breath and looked up at the speaker. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. The Galactic Council has never encountered a species quite like humanity. You've grown comfortable in your superiority. You've forgotten what it means to struggle, to fight, to adapt. That comfort will be your downfall. Veraxis's scales flashed through several colors before settling on deep purple, a sign of confusion mixed with rage. You dare threaten this council? You are one species against 47. Your colonies number in the dozens while ours span thousands of worlds. Your fleet is a fraction of ours. What possible chance do you think you have? The human ambassador smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You assume that numbers equal strength. You assume that age equals wisdom. You assume that because you have kept peace for 10,000 years, you remember how to wage war. You're wrong on all counts. Veraxis slammed his claw down on the armrest of his throne. The Council votes now. All those in favor of declaring war on humanity, signal your approval. One by one, every single Council member voted yes. 47 species, representing trillions of beings, unanimously agreed to destroy humanity. The decision was final and absolute. Humanity has one standard galactic week to prepare, Veraxis declared. Use it to evacuate your civilians. Use it to say your prayers to whatever gods you worship. Use it to prepare for extinction. Deho bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that seemed almost mocking in context. 1 week. Very generous. We'll be ready. He turned and walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. As the doors closed behind him, he could hear the council members, already discussing how to divide human territory among themselves. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. Deho spent most of it in his quarters, reviewing reports and preparing briefings. When his ship finally entered orbit around humanity's homeworld, he felt a strange mixture of dread and anticipation. President Jiwan met him at the landing pad. She was younger than Deho, barely 50, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. They voted for war, she said. It wasn't a question. Unanimously, Deho confirmed. Varaxis gave us 1 week. Then we don't have time to waste. Guan led him to a waiting transport that took them deep underground, to a facility that officially didn't exist. The Unified Defense Command Center was a marvel of engineering. A city-sized complex buried beneath the Pacific Ocean floor. General Hunwu and Admiral Minseo were already waiting in the main strategic room. The walls were covered with displays showing every human colony, every ship, every defensive position. Hunwu was a career soldier, his face marked with scars from the colony wars decades ago. Minseo was younger but equally experienced, having commanded fleets since she was 25. They expect us to crumble, Hunwu said without preamble. They think we'll beg for mercy. Minseo pulled up a holographic display of human military assets. They don't know what we've been building. They don't know about the fortress worlds, the hidden fleets, the weapons we've developed in secret. They think their technology restrictions actually stopped us. Juan looked at each of them in turn. The Council has no idea what they've just started. Humanity didn't spend 3 centuries in space just exploring and colonizing. We spent those centuries preparing for this exact moment. We knew they would come for us eventually. Deho moved to the display and highlighted several human colonies. They'll strike here first. New Busan, they'll expect an easy victory against what they think is a farming colony. Hunwu smiled grimly. Let them come. We'll show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone present understood what was coming. War on a scale humanity had never experienced. Battles across hundreds of star systems, millions, perhaps billions of casualties. But there was no fear in that room, only determination. 1 week, Guan said quietly. We make them regret giving us even that much time. Fleet Commander Zelvac watched the view screen as his armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 10,000 warships materialized in perfect formation around him. The largest military force assembled in 500 years. The ships represented 24 different species, each contributing their finest vessels to what the Council promised would be a swift and decisive victory. Below them, the planet New Busan rotated peacefully. Scan data showed exactly what intelligence reports had predicted: a simple agricultural colony of 2 million humans. Fields of crops stretched across 3 continents. Small cities dotted the coastlines. A few orbital stations handled basic commerce. There were no military installations visible, no defensive satellites, no fleet in orbit. Zelvic felt almost disappointed. He had commanded fleets in 3 previous conflicts, all against species that at least attempted to defend themselves. This would be over in hours, perhaps minutes. Still, orders were orders, and the Council wanted to make an example of humanity. Open a channel to the planetary government, Zelvic commanded. The communication officer worked his console. Channel open, Commander. Human woman appeared on the screen. She looked to be in her 40s, wearing civilian clothes, and standing in what appeared to be a standard government office. The nameplate identified her as Governor Yunji. I am Fleet Commander Zelvic of the Horthian Dominion. Acting under authority of the Galactic Council, he announced formally, New Busan is hereby ordered to surrender immediately. Power down all facilities and await occupation forces. Resistance will be met with orbital bombardment. Governor Yunji tilted her head slightly as if considering his words. Commander Zelvic, I have a question before we respond to your demands. Speak quickly. Have you ever heard of the Terran concept called playing possum? Zelvak's translator struggled with the phrase. I do not understand. Yunji smiled. It's when a small animal pretends to be dead to avoid predators. The predator thinks it's safe, gets close, and then... She snapped her fingers. Surprise? Before Zelvik could respond, every sensor on his flagship screamed warnings simultaneously. The peaceful farmland below erupted with activity. What had appeared to be irrigation systems revealed themselves as camouflaged railgun batteries. Thousands of them swiveling toward the sky. The orbital stations dropped their commercial disguises and bristled with weapons. Most shocking of all, the ocean itself seemed to come alive. Launch detection. His tactical officer shouted. Massive launch detection from underwater facilities. Estimated count. I'm reading over 500,000 individual targets. The view screen filled with streaks of light as automated drones burst from the ocean and atmosphere, swarming toward the Council fleet like angry insects. Each drone was small, barely larger than a fighter craft, but there were so many of them that they blotted out the stars. All ships, defensive formation, Zelvik commanded. Activate shields and prepare point defense systems. The Council fleet tried to respond. Their ships were designed for traditional warfare, vessel against vessel in open space. Their targeting computers couldn't lock on to so many small, fast-moving targets. Their shields, calibrated for energy weapons and large projectiles, proved useless against the swarm of kinetic rounds fired by the rail dash guns Commander Jaeon watched from his underground command center as the battle unfolded according to plan. Holographic displays showed every ship, every drone, every weapon system operating in perfect coordination. His staff worked at their stations with practiced efficiency, calling out status reports and adjusting tactics in real time. Railgun batteries at 80% capacity, reported one officer. Ammunition reserves sufficient for another 6 hours of sustained fire. Drone swarms Alpha through Delta have engaged enemy vessels, called another. Approximately 42% of drones remain operational. Enemy shields showing degradation across the entire fleet. Jaeon pulled up a tactical view of one Council battleship. The massive vessel was surrounded by thousands of drones, each one firing solid projectile rounds at specific points on the hull. Individually, the drones were harmless against such a large ship. Together, they were overwhelming its defenses through sheer volume of fire. Target their engines and weapon systems, Jaeon ordered. We want some of them disabled, not destroyed. Let them carry word back about what happened here. In orbit, Zelvak's fleet was discovering the fundamental problem with their approach. Every time they destroyed a dozen drones, 100 more took their place. Every time they focused fire on one area, attacks intensified from another direction. The human strategy was brutally simple. Drown the enemy in targets they couldn't possibly kill fast enough. A Council destroyer exploded as its reactor went critical. Then another. Then 3 more in quick succession. Ships that had fought in dozens of battles found themselves crippled by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. Sir, we've lost over 3,000 ships, Zelvak's tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. Casualties are at 40% and climbing. We need to retreat. Zelvik stared at the display in disbelief. 40% losses in 6 hours against a single colony world that was supposed to be defenseless. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was catastrophic. All ships begin withdrawal, he ordered quietly. Maintain defensive formations and cover each other's retreat. The Council fleet limped away from New Busan, leaving behind thousands of destroyed vessels and hundreds of thousands of dead crew members. The drones pursued them to the edge of the system before breaking off. Returning to their underwater bases, like sharks retreating to deeper water, Governor Yunji appeared on Zelvak's screen one final time as his ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed. Commander, please carry a message back to the Council. Tell them this was the gentle introduction. Tell them New Busan is just one colony among dozens. Tell them that every single human world is ready to do exactly what we just did. The transmission ended. Zelvak slumped in his command chair as his ship accelerated away from the system. Around him, the survivors of his once mighty fleet struggled to process what had happened. On Earth, Admiral Minseo watched the battle reports with satisfaction. She stood in the same underground command center where the war had been planned, surrounded by dozens of officers monitoring human forces across known space. New Busan reports complete victory, an officer announced. Enemy fleet retreated with approximately 40% losses. Our casualties were minimal, mostly drone attrition. Governor Yunji requests permission to begin recovery operations, Granite Minseo replied, and send a message to all colony commanders. Tell them the council now knows we can fight. The next attack will be much larger and much more desperate. Every world needs to be ready. General Hyunwoo appeared on a communication screen. The council will be humiliated by this. They'll come back with everything they have, Good Minseo said. Let them commit fully. Let them bring their best ships, their best commanders, their best weapons. We've spent 3 centuries preparing for this war. The longer it goes, the more they'll realize they can't win. President Juan joined the conversation from her office. What about civilian casualties? How many people did we lose on New Busan? 17, Minseo reported. All military personnel who chose to remain at surface stations. The civilian population was evacuated to deep shelters before the battle began. They're already returning to their homes. Juan nodded slowly. 17 lives against 3,000 enemy ships. The council wanted to make an example of us. Instead, we've made an example of them. Across the galaxy, news of the Battle of New Busan spread like wildfire. Species that had assumed humanity would collapse within days suddenly found themselves questioning the council's certainty. Some began withdrawing their support for the war. Others intensified their commitment, determined to crush the upstart humans before they became an even greater threat. In the council chamber, Speaker Vraxis received Zelvak's report in stunned silence. The fleet commander's face was haunted as he described the battle. The impossible number of drones, the precision of human tactics, the complete failure of council technology to counter human strategies. They weren't unprepared, Zelvak concluded. They were waiting for us. Every defense was planned. Every weapon was positioned. They wanted us to attack New Busan. They used it as bait to destroy our fleet. Vraxis dismissed the transmission and looked at his fellow council members. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. We underestimated them, he said quietly. We assumed their youth meant weakness. We were wrong, a Horthian representative spoke up. Then we commit more forces. We bring the full might of the council to bear. We show them that one victory means nothing against our full strength. Vraxis nodded slowly. Yes, we escalate. But we do so knowing that humanity is far more dangerous than we believed. This war will not be the quick victory we promised. This will be a fight for survival. Speaker Vraxis stood before the assembled council and announced the deployment of weapons that had not been used in over 1,000 years. The chamber, usually filled with diplomatic debate, fell silent as he listed them one by one. Planetary bombardment vessels capable of cracking worlds, biological weapons designed to target specific species at the genetic level, and most terrifying of all, the Void Reapers, ancient war machines created by civilizations long dead. Humanity will learn what it means to defy the natural order, Vraxis declared. When we are finished, their name will be a warning to every species in the galaxy. Rebellion leads only to extinction. The vote was swift and unanimous. Every species that had suffered losses at New Busan demanded revenge. Those that had remained neutral feared what would happen if humanity was allowed to continue unchecked. The council committed everything to this war, holding nothing back. On Earth, President Juan addressed her people and broadcast the message across every frequency that existed. The transmission was impossible to block, carried on channels the council didn't even know humanity had access to. You call us young, Juan said, her voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. You call us inexperienced? You call us reckless? You're absolutely right. We've only been in space for 300 years. Do you know what we were doing for the 10,000 years before that? We were fighting. Fighting each other. Fighting nature. Fighting reality itself. We learned to survive in environments that would kill most of your species. We learned to adapt to anything. We learned that the only way to ensure survival is to never, ever stop improving. The message continued. You've had peace for 10 millennia. That's wonderful. But it means you've forgotten what it takes to wage war. We haven't. We remember. Captain Kuhnman received his orders 3 hours after the president's broadcast. His ship, the Unseen Hand, was one of 30 stealth vessels in humanity's fleet. Unlike the massive battle cruisers that fought at New Busan, these ships were small, fast, and completely invisible to Council sensors. Our mission is simple, Kuhnman told his crew of 15. We don't defend colonies. We don't fight fleets. We go after their logistics, their supply lines, their infrastructure. We make them afraid to resupply their ships. We make them question whether any facility is truly safe. Now, the Unseen Hand dropped into normal space near a Council fuel depot in the Terek system. The facility was enormous, a city-sized structure that processed and stored fuel for thousands of ships. It was defended by a patrol fleet of 50 vessels and protected by automated defense platforms. Take us in, Kuhnman ordered. Silent running. Don't give them anything to detect. The ship glided through space, its experimental hull absorbing sensor pings instead of reflecting them. To the Council defenders, there was nothing there, just empty space between the stars. Weapons range in 30 seconds, reported the tactical officer. Hold, Kuhnman said quietly. Let's get closer. They drifted within 2 kilometers of the depot before Kuhnman gave the order. Fire. Missiles launched from concealed bays, crossing the distance in seconds. They weren't designed to destroy the entire depot. Instead, they targeted specific systems: fuel transfer lines, power generators, communication arrays. The explosions were small, but devastating, crippling the facility without killing most of the crew inside, before the Council ships could even respond. The Unseen Hand was gone, jumping back into faster-than-light travel. The entire attack had lasted less than 3 minutes. Similar strikes occurred across Council space over the following days. Supply convoys vanished without a trace. Repair facilities suddenly lost power. Communication relays went dark. The Council military found itself fighting an enemy they couldn't see and couldn't catch. Commander Salman studied the holographic display of Altoria, stationed with intense focus. The station was the Council's primary military shipyard, capable of constructing capital ships and repairing entire fleets. It orbited a massive gas giant in the Terek system, protected by 3 defensive fleets and a network of orbital fortresses. Intelligence rated it as impossible to assault directly. We're not going to assault it, Salman told her team of 11 ship captains. We're going to take it intact. The plan was insane by conventional military standards. 12 ships against the most heavily defended facility in Council space. But these weren't conventional ships, and this wasn't a conventional war. The gas giant is the key, Salman explained, highlighting the massive planet on the display. It has a specific atmospheric composition. If we detonate nuclear charges at precise points in the upper atmosphere, we'll trigger a chain reaction. Electromagnetic pulses will cascade through the entire system. Every Council ship will lose power simultaneously. For how long? Asked one of the captains. 3 minutes. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. That's not much time. It's enough. The 12 ships approached the system using the same stealth technology as the Unseen Hand. They positioned themselves in a sphere around the gas giant, each one carrying nuclear warheads designed for this specific purpose. All ships report ready, came the confirmation. Salman took a breath. Execute. 12 nuclear devices detonated simultaneously in the gas giant's atmosphere. The reaction was immediate and spectacular. Lightning arced across the planet's surface as the electromagnetic pulse built and built, then exploded outward in an invisible wave of energy. Every electronic system in the Terek system failed at once. Ships went dark. Stations lost power. Communications died. In the sudden darkness, the Council defenders were blind and helpless. Boarding teams. Go, Salman ordered. Human soldiers in powered armor launched from the 12 ships. Crossing the distance to Valtoria Station in the darkness, Lieutenant Tejan led the main assault force, breaching the station's hull and moving through corridors lit only by emergency lighting. No resistance, Tejan reported. Station crew is confused and disorganized. We're securing key systems now. By the time power returned to the system, Valtoria Station was under human control. Council ships found themselves facing the station's own weapons. Now crewed by humans who had studied the facility's capabilities for months. This is Commander Soman to all Council vessels, she broadcast. Valtoria Station is now property of the Terran Defense Force. You have two options. Withdraw immediately, or be fired upon by your own weapons. Choose quickly. Council fleets withdrew. They had no choice. Fighting would mean destroying their own shipyard, and they needed those facilities desperately. News of Valtoria's capture spread even faster than the Battle of New Busan, the Council's most secure facility taken without firing a shot. The psychological impact was devastating. If Valtoria could fall, what else was vulnerable? Species began questioning their commitment to the war. Some withdrew their forces entirely, claiming they had joined under false pretenses. Others sought separate peace agreements with humanity, hoping to avoid further losses. But the Council leadership refused to accept defeat. In a secret session, attended by only the most senior members, Speaker Vroxus revealed their final option. The entropy cannon, he said quietly. We will use it on Earth itself. Several Council members protested immediately. That weapon has only been tested once. The results were catastrophic. An entire star system destroyed. Exactly, Vroxus replied. We will destroy humanity's homeworld. We will make an example so terrible that no species will ever dare defy the Council again. But the civilian casualties are necessary, Vroxus interrupted. 8 billion humans will die. It is regrettable. But it is the only way to ensure galactic stability. The vote was close, but ultimately the Council authorized the use of the entropy cannon. Only a handful of species knew what was coming. Those who objected were silenced by threats or imprisonment. Agent Borum had spent a decade embedded in the Council bureaucracy, slowly working her way into positions where she could access critical information. She was human, but through surgical modification and careful behavior. She passed as a member of a similar-looking species. It was lonely work, dangerous work, necessary. When she discovered the Council's plan to use the entropy cannon, she knew her cover was finished. She transmitted everything she had learned to Earth in a compressed data burst, then tried to escape the Council station where she worked. Council security caught her before she reached her ship. Borum fought, killing 3 guards before they overwhelmed her. As they dragged her to an interrogation room, she managed to activate one final transmission. This is Agent Borum, she said, blood running from a wound on her head. Earth has 72 hours before the entropy cannon is in position. Don't let them win. Make them remember who they decided to fight. Security cut the transmission and ended her life moments later. But the message had already reached Earth. The emergency session began 30 minutes after Agent Borum's final transmission reached Earth. President Jiwon sat at the head of the conference table, surrounded by military leaders and scientists, all of them staring at the holographic display that showed the entropy cannon's current position and projected path. 72 hours, General Hunu said quietly. That's all we have. Admiral Min Seo pulled up technical specifications that intelligence had gathered on the weapon. The entropy cannon was built by the precursors, the civilization that came before the current galactic order. It destabilizes stars at the quantum level. When it fires, the target star collapses into a black hole. Earth will have approximately 6 minutes from the moment of firing before the sun's collapse consumes the inner planets. Can we evacuate? Asked one of the civilian advisors. 8 billion people? Minseo shook her head. We don't have enough ships. Even if we started immediately, we might save a few million at most. Guan looked at the faces around the table. She saw fear, yes, but also determination. These were people who had spent their entire careers preparing for the worst possible scenarios. Now the worst had arrived, and they would not break. Options, she said simply. We could surrender, suggested the civilian advisor. Agree to all council demands in exchange for them standing down the weapon. They won't, Hyunwoo replied. The moment they decided to use that weapon, they committed to our extinction. They can't back down now. Any sign of weakness would shatter the council completely. We could try to destroy the weapon, Minseo offered. Launch everything we have at it. The weapon is protected by the largest defensive fleet in the galaxy, Hyunwoo countered. We'd never get close enough. The room fell silent. For the first time since the war began, humanity's leaders faced a problem that seemed to have no solution. Then Dr. Jejin spoke up. She was a slight woman in her 30s, brilliant but soft-spoken, easily overlooked in a room full of military officers. What if we don't try to stop them from firing? Everyone turned to look at her, explained Jawan said. Jejin pulled up her own holographic display, showing complex mathematical equations and energy flow patterns. The entropy cannon works by sending a focused beam of exotic particles through subspace. These particles interact with the star's core and cause a cascade failure. But subspace isn't empty. It's a medium like water. And like water, it can be redirected. You want to redirect a weapon capable of destroying a star? Minseo asked carefully. Not redirect, Jejin corrected. Reverse. If we can set up a network of quantum field generators around our sun, we can create a controlled pathway. When the entropy cannon fires, we let the beam reach our sun, but we contain the energy in a subspace bubble. Then we release it all at once, sending it back through the same pathway it came from. Hyunwoo leaned forward. You're talking about turning their own weapon against them. Exactly. But I need time. I need every physicist, every engineer, and every AI core in human space working on this simultaneously. And I need at least 60 hours to position the satellites. That gives us 12 hours of margin, Guan calculated. If anything goes wrong, ... Then Earth dies, Yajin finished quietly. But if we do nothing, Earth dies anyway. This is our only chance. Juan looked around the table one more time. We proceed with Dr. Yajin's plan. Admiral Minseo, you have operational command. Pull every ship we have back to Earth. If this doesn't work, I want our fleet here to defend our home to the last. Understood, Minseo replied. The next 60 hours were the longest in human history. Across every colony and outpost, scientists worked without sleep on different components of Yajin's plan. Factories that normally produced civilian goods retooled to manufacture specialized satellites. Ships raced through space carrying equipment and personnel and around Earth. Admiral Minseo assembled the largest human fleet ever gathered. Thousands of vessels converged on humanity's homeworld, pulling away from defensive positions and offensive operations. Every captain understood what was happening. Earth was about to become the ultimate battleground. The Council didn't ignore this buildup. Their scouts reported the massive fleet gathering in Earth's solar system, and they responded by sending their own armada. To ensure the entropy cannon could complete its mission, the two fleets met at the edge of the solar system, near Neptune's orbit. What followed was the largest space battle in recorded history. Tens of thousands of ships engaged each other across billions of kilometers of space. Pilot Sunho launched from his carrier in a fighter craft, barely 20 meters long. Around him, thousands of other fighters formed up, preparing to engage Council capital ships that massed millions of tons, all squadrons. Listen up, came the voice of the flight commander. Our job is simple. Keep the Council fleet busy. Give Dr. Yijin time to finish her work. Some of us won't make it back, but our children will remember what we did here. Sunho checked his weapons and shields one final time, then pushed his throttle forward. The fighter accelerated toward a Council battleship that was larger than most human colonies. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded by the dozens, their debris creating hazard fields that claimed even more vessels. Fighters darted between capital ships, targeting engines and weapon systems. Cruisers exchanged broadsides at ranges where human eyes couldn't even see the enemy. Sunho's fighter took a glancing hit from a Council beam weapon. His shields failed and his left engine sputtered. He diverted power from life support to weapons and lined up one final attack run on a Council destroyer. For Earth, he whispered. and fired every missile he had remaining. The destroyer's shields collapsed under the assault. 3 more fighters followed Sun Ho's lead, pouring fire into the gap. The destroyer began breaking apart, its reactor containment failing. Sun Ho never saw the result. A piece of debris from another destroyed ship caught his fighter at high speed. His craft disintegrated instantly, one more casualty among thousands. But the sacrifice bought time. Hour by hour, the human fleet held the line. They weren't winning the battle, not in any conventional sense. Council ships outnumbered them and outgunned them. But they only needed to delay, not defeat. On Earth, in an underground facility, Dr. Yejan monitored the satellite network she had spent every waking hour building. 3,000 quantum field generators now orbited the Sun in a precise geometric pattern. Each one had been positioned to within centimeters of its designated location. Each one communicated with the others through quantum entanglement, coordinating their field emissions at speeds faster than light. Status. She asked her team. All satellites report ready, came the response. Field generators are charged and synchronized. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Eugene looked at the countdown timer. 8 minutes until the entropy cannon reached firing position. 8 minutes until they found out if her calculations were correct. President Ji-wan appeared on a communications screen. Doctor, the Council fleet has broken through our outer defensive line. They're ensuring the weapon has a clear shot. Then we wait, Jae-jin replied. If we activate the field too early, they'll detect it and adjust their firing solution. We have to let them shoot first. Understood. Good luck, Doctor. The timer counted down. 6 minutes. 5. In space near Neptune, Admiral Minseo watched her fleet continue fighting despite impossible odds. They had lost over half their ships, but they had accomplished their mission. The Council fleet was positioned exactly where humanity needed them to be. All ships, she broadcast. It's been an honor serving with you. Hold the line just a little longer. 3 minutes. 2, 1. The entropy cannon fired. A beam of impossible colors lanced across space, moving faster than anything should be able to move. It crossed the distance from the Council fleet to Earth's sun in 3 seconds. A journey that should take light over 8 minutes. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the sun began to die. Fusion reactions that had burned steadily for billions of years suddenly became unstable. The star's core started collapsing, pulled inward by forces that defied normal physics. Now, Eugene shouted, 3,000 quantum field generators activated simultaneously. They created a bubble of altered spacetime around the sun, containing the destructive energy of the entropy cannon's beam. For 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds they held. Then Yejin reversed the field polarity. The quantum field generators around Earth's sun reversed their polarity in perfect synchronization. The destructive energy of the entropy cannon, which had been contained in a bubble of altered spacetime, suddenly found a new path. It flowed backward through the same subspace pathway it had traveled. Moving faster than light itself, Dr. Yejin watched her displays as energy readings spiked beyond anything her instruments were designed to measure. It's working, she whispered. It's actually working. The reversed beam crossed the solar system in seconds, emerging from subspace at the exact point where the entropy cannon had fired. The weapons crew had no time to react, no chance to defend themselves. The cannon's own destructive force struck it directly. For a fraction of a second, the entropy cannon became the brightest object in the galaxy. Then it, along with the 3 Council fleets protecting it, vanished in a flash of antimatter annihilation. The explosion was so powerful that it created a temporary tear in spacetime, visible from hundreds of light years away. In the underground facility on Earth, Yajin's team erupted in cheers. The sun's collapse had stopped. The fusion reactions stabilized. Earth and all its 8 billion inhabitants had survived. Admiral Minseo stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the sensor data that confirmed what her instruments were showing. The Council's ultimate weapon was gone. The fleets protecting it were destroyed, and the human fleet battered but unbroken. remained in control of Earth's solar system, she opened a communication channel that broadcast across every frequency the galaxy used. Her message would be heard by billions of beings across thousands of worlds. "This is Admiral Minseo of the Terran Defense Force. It's broadcasting to the Galactic Council and all member species," she began. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "The Galactic Council attempted to destroy humanity's homeworld using a weapon of mass destruction. They failed." She paused, letting that sink in. "You called us young. You called us weak. You called us unprepared. We've shown you otherwise at every turn. We defeated your fleet at New Busan. We captured Veltoria Station. We held Earth against impossible odds. And now we've turned your ultimate weapon against you." Another pause. "So I ask you now, on behalf of all humanity, is that all you've got?" The message ended. In the silence that followed, Minseo allowed herself a small smile. The war wasn't over, but the Council's certainty was shattered. They had thrown everything at humanity and failed. Across the galaxy, the impact of the message was immediate and profound. Species that had committed forces to the war began demanding explanations from their governments. How had the Council so completely underestimated humanity? How many more of their people would die for this failed campaign? In the council chamber, Speaker Vraxis stared at the empty seat where the Horthian representative had sat. That species had withdrawn from the council entirely after the destruction of their fleets. They were not alone. 7 other species had already declared their departure from the council. Unwilling to continue a war they now saw as unwinnable, the crystalline being that had once spoken so confidently about humanity's youth now addressed Vraxis directly. "We cannot win this war. Every battle we fight, we lose. Every strategy we attempt, they counter. We must accept peace." Vraxis wanted to argue, wanted to demand they continue fighting. But he looked around at the council members who remained and saw only fear and doubt. The institution that had maintained a galactic order for 10 millennia was collapsing because of one species that refused to accept its place. "Contact the humans," he said quietly. "Arrange negotiations." President Jiwan received the council's request for peace talks. While standing in the ruins of a district that had been damaged during the battle, even here in the debris, construction crews were already working to rebuild. That was humanity, she thought. Always building, always moving forward. "They want peace," General Hyunwoo reported. "Unconditional negotiations with no preconditions." "What are our losses?" Jiwan asked. "Final count is still coming in, but we estimate around 2 million casualties, military and civilian combined. 300 colonies suffered damage. 60 ships were completely destroyed. 2 million dead." Giwan felt the weight of every single life. These were people who had trusted her leadership, who had believed in humanity's cause. She would not let their sacrifice be meaningless. "Tell the council we agree to negotiations," she said. "But they come to Earth. They come to the world they tried to destroy. And they come prepared to discuss, not just peace, but the future of the entire galaxy." 3 weeks later, the council delegates arrived at Earth. They came in small diplomatic vessels, their military fleets withdrawn to their home systems. Speaker Vraxis led the delegation, his scales now a subdued gray that signaled both respect and submission. The negotiations took place in a newly constructed building, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Through the windows, council delegates could see the reconstruction efforts in progress. Human workers and robots labored side by side, rebuilding what the war had damaged. Giwan sat across from Vraxis at a simple table. No elaborate thrones, no ceremonial displays, just 2 leaders trying to find a path forward. "The council accepts responsibility for initiating hostilities," Vraxis began, reading from a prepared statement. "We acknowledge that our preconceptions about humanity were incorrect. We propose an immediate ceasefire and a return to pre-war boundaries." "No," Jiwan said simply. Vraxis looked up in surprise. "No, the Galactic Council as it existed is finished," Giwan continued. "You proved that when you tried to commit genocide against my species. We're not going back to the old system where a handful of species dictate terms to everyone else. Then what do you propose? A new organization. A true federation of equals. Every species gets a voice, regardless of age or power. Decisions made by consensus, not by decree. And most importantly, no restrictions on technology or development. Every civilization should be free to grow at its own pace. Braxis was quiet for a long moment. The Council will never accept such terms. Then the war continues, Jiwan replied calmly. And you've seen what happens when you fight us. Every battle costs you more than you can afford. How many more species will abandon the Council? How long before your entire civilization crumbles? She leaned forward. We don't want dominance over the galaxy, Speaker Vercesis. We never did. We just want the freedom to exist on our own terms. The choice is simple. Work with us to build something better, or continue fighting a war you cannot win. The negotiations continued for 6 days. In the end, Verexes and the remaining council members agreed to Giwan's terms. The Galactic Council would be dissolved and replaced by the Federation of Free Worlds, an organization built on principles of equality and mutual cooperation. Rather than hierarchy and control, not every species joined immediately. Some retreated into isolation, bitter about their losses. Others embraced the new order enthusiastically. Seeing it as an opportunity for growth, they had been denied under Council rule. 1 year after the war's end, Ambassador Deho stood in the new Federation chamber. Built in orbit around Earth, the building's design incorporated elements from dozens of different cultures. A physical representation of the diversity that Federation celebrated, he watched as representatives from over 100 species took their seats for the first session. Former enemies sat beside former allies, all of them working together to establish rules and procedures for this unprecedented organization. General Hyunwoo, now retired, visited the memorial that had been constructed for those who died in the war. Agent Borum's name was engraved prominently, along with 2 million others who had given their lives. The inscription at the memorial's base read simply, "They thought our youth made us weak. We showed them that youth means we still remember how to fight for what matters." Admiral Minseo, still in active service, commanded the Joint Federation Defense Force. Her fleet included ships from a dozen species, all working together to protect the new order they had built. The irony wasn't lost on her that she now commanded some of the same ships that had once tried to destroy EARTH. Dr. Yajin received the Federation's highest civilian honor for her work in developing the Quantum, a field network that had saved Earth. She used the attention to establish research programs that would share human technology with other species, accelerating development across the galaxy. President Jiwan, in her final address before stepping down, reflected on what humanity had accomplished. We were told we were too young, too inexperienced, too dangerous. Perhaps we were all those things, but we were also determined, creative, and unwilling to accept a future written by others. We fought not for conquest, but for the right to determine our own path. She paused, looking out at the audience of humans and aliens alike. The war is over. The old council is gone. Now we have the chance to build something better, something that honors the sacrifice of those who fell. We have the chance to prove that different species can work together as equals, and we will not waste that chance. Across the galaxy, humanity's question had become a legend. Is that all you've got? It was repeated in a dozen languages, told in countless stories, used as both a warning and an inspiration. The species that had been so confident in their superiority had learned a hard lesson about underestimating the determined